Hey everybody, this is Perch. What's that Billie Eilish song that it's in the Barbie? They're playing on the radio a lot. It's the most depressing song. Like I don't have I used to be. My boyfriend doesn't know what he's doing. Like, God, it's depressing as hell. Anyway, song keeps getting played, and I don't know. Anyway, let's read this mail. It's an X-Men mail. Y'all know how we love those. It says, "Is Age of Apocalypse my Phoenix Saga?" I think I know where this mail is going, but let's see where it is. And I think this is a genius point, by the way. If this mail goes where I think it's going to go. Hey, Perch. First off, Happy New Year. Yep, that's how old this mail is. Hope you and your family had a good holiday season. Yeah. I was thinking about, of all things, Sugar Man tonight. Sugar Man was a villain in Age of Apocalypse. And I recently she showed up and he got moved over from Age of Apocalypse into the mainline Marvel Universe. And I always felt like Marvel had things they wanted to do with this guy, but they never really did. He showed up in New Mutants and I think something else, but I think he's dead now, or maybe I don't know what his character is. Anyway, it didn't work. We'll put it that way. Anyway, I was thinking about, of all things, Sugar Man tonight, and realized that out of the few years I read X-Men number 25 through Zero Tolerance, its Age of Apocalypse stands out the most. When you bring up the famous Marvel stories, you'll mention the Dark Phoenix Saga arc. Then there are other well-known ones: Executioner Song, House of M, and the recent Krakoa era. I'm not the Executioner Song wasn't as big a deal for me. I know there's some people that like it hit some people really well in a certain time period, but that event didn't land for me like the others. I don't know why. I don't know why people really love it. If you, by the way, please let me know in the comments why did you like that one? I don't quite understand. The Extinction Agenda, hell yes, I understand that one. I understand the Mutant Massacre and Inferno and Fall of the Mutants and hell, even Second Coming. I can understand that one a little bit. Messiah Complex. I mean, you can go through the various things they've done, but I never really got Executioner Song. To me, that was always kind of the bum of it. But I may be crazy there. All right, let's keep going. If you had to pick a handful of canon events that define X-Men as a mythology, which would you pick? Is Age of Apocalypse on the same level as Dark Phoenix Saga, or does my small window bias me? As always, thank you for the videos. Been listening since 2021. Kick ass, my friend. And your insight into comics has been a treat. Have a great 2024. My channel started in April of 2019, so I am going to have my 5-year anniversary. In fact, given the amount of videos that have been stacked up, I know I'm already into late April. So, yeah, I think I need to do a special video for the 5-year. What should I do for the 5-year anniversary? Any picks? Face reveal. You want to do that? And nobody wants to see this face. That's the problem. It's not a treat for anyone, other than my various stalkers who really want to come after me. It's a treat for them. But otherwise, whatever. So back to this mail, because this is, I think, a great mail. Age of Apocalypse. So first off, Dark Phoenix Saga, I think is really, for me, it's special because it wasn't really an event. It was a storyline in a comic. It later, got, collected to trade, and they've kind of categorized it as an event. But but really, it wasn't. It was just stories. It was the Uncanny X-Men. And one of the nice things about it was it did just flow. It just like, that was a great thing about comics at the time, is you could do these big events. Teen Titans had several of them as well, and Justice League, Batman. They're like these cool stories. And I know to all you youngsters out there, believe it or not, comics used to do these really powerful, epic, major storylines, and they would do them just in the comic. There wasn't tie-ins or an event or any of that. It was just the comic. And so that's where Dark Phoenix Saga holds a special place in my heart, because that's what it was. It was just a story. It was a damn good one. And it became very impactful because you're killing off one of the original X-Men characters, Jean Grey. You are introducing a bunch of pretty cool shit with kind of the whole thing that was going on with the Shi'ar, and you have the Hellfire Club, and you had a bunch of pretty major pieces. And also, it was big time. Like, Jean Grey straight up murders a planet, big at the time. And so that was a major kind of, a lot of escalation, kind of major character dying, major kind of final stakes of the X-Men. I mean, all that kind of stuff. It was a big deal. So that was a major event for the X-Men. As well, Mutant Massacre followed some of that, although it started crossover stuff because Marvel was getting addicted to that. The crossover worked well, so then you had Fall of Mutants, and then you had Inferno. And then at some point, Marvel's like, why the hell are we just sticking it with the regular titles? We can actually have Alphas and Omegas and all this other crap. You had House of M, its own special event with dozens of tie-ins and all that kind of stuff. But Age of Apocalypse probably predated. Age of Apocalypse is where Marvel really figured out that they could sell Alpha and Omega issues and, just really rake in the crossovers. By the way, I'm saying all this, and you may be sensing a note of derision in my voice of like this is a bunch of crap. But despite the obvious cash grab of Age of Apocalypse and all the things around that, Age of Apocalypse absolutely is one of the key Marvel moments, no doubt about it. I think for the X-Men, Age of Apocalypse is up there, and I would say as impactful as Dark Phoenix Saga in a different way, but I think it was. First off, that Age of Apocalypse, and even though I absolutely hate the concept most of the time, it did really lean into the multiverse, and it leaned into kind of alternate, what if kind of reality. We'd seen that with Days of Future Past and other things that the X-Men kind of like to tap into. But the Age of Apocalypse really gave us that world kind of decompressed, fleshed out. I mean, they really dove in to give us the full flavor of what this reality was going to be like. And that was pretty damn exciting. If you were a comic fan and you were, a big, loved the X-Men and all the rest, then the idea of Age of Apocalypse was immersive. It introduced kind of these other versions of these characters. It gave you a hint of what everything could have been like. And it really was big. And it still felt today. I mean, we still, Blink, who really, got used a bunch 10 years ago, is kind of faded now. But there's still a level of excitement in the X titles when you say, we're going to tap into the Age of Apocalypse, or we're going to go and see that. There still is that hint, that feeling of revisiting that world because it was so powerful and did so much. So, I think part of it's a generational thing. I think if you were older, you say, the Dark Phoenix Saga was absolutely that was the big one. That was the big moment they remember. If you were a little bit older, you probably say Mutant Massacre. Sorry, younger. If you're a little younger, then you think Mutant Massacre. But generally, the Mutant Massacre, Fall of the Mutants, Inferno all came so close together that a lot of people really remember that one. And if you started collecting comics in the 90s, then chances are, Age of Apocalypse was your jam. That was the thing where you got introduced to big time Marvel events and these big crossovers and what can be and all the rest. So I think if you started collecting comics in the late 80s, early 90s, Age of Apocalypse was probably the big thing. And it put, for what it's worth, I mean, that probably propelled the X-Men to an extra level of popularity and power that it hadn't had before. I mean, it's wildly popular, but you might argue that the Age of Apocalypse was coming around kind of as the newsstand was dying and we were getting into the direct market. And that was probably the most impactful direct market kind of early crossover that really, got a lot of things moving. And so I think that's, it can't be understated. It's very, fashionable and popular, I think, to hate on Age of Apocalypse, that it was, that was a cheap 90s event. And I see a lot of websites like Why the Age of Apocalypse is actually a pile of shit. And I see a lot of these sites, going down that path. Usually that's a very thinly disguised way to make fun of 90s fans because apparently, you're supposed to, because fuck those 90s fans. They bought a lot of comics, but fuck them anyway, apparently. But look, I think you are, you're the best word to put. I mean, the nicest way to put it would be highly disingenuous. It is highly, highly disingenuous to crap on Age of Apocalypse. It made a ton of money for shops. It absolutely stuck in the minds of readers, and it's a big deal. I think it deserves tons and tons of credit, and I think it was done well. I mean, look, you can. It was definitely more of a smash 'em up kind of event. It didn't have the moral complexity of a Grant Morrison type event. but it's well loved. And for my book anyway, comic books should be well loved. Like that's kind of an important factor of what makes a good comic book, is that people remember it, love it, were entertained by it, enjoyed it, and they did. The Age of Apocalypse was loved. I mean, there's no other way to put it. People loved that book, and they were excited. It's one of the few titles. I mean, there's a couple books I noticed that get a lot of criticism, and yet, working in a comic shop, selling these comics, I will tell you that Age of Apocalypse and Civil War, people were dying to get the next issue. They could not wait to see what was going to happen next. The comic would come in. One of the few times you've ever been into a comic shop and you watch people like buy the comic, sometimes not buy the comic, but buy the comic and then open it up and then read it there in the store because they cannot wait to read it. And Civil War was absolutely one of those books. The Ultimates was another one like that. The Final Crisis, the earlier issues of that were that way over at DC. Not the Sinestro, Blackest Night was like that. Age of Apocalypse was absolutely like that. And I think for comics to be really successful, there's a lot of different barometers there. But one of those is, does the comic make you want to stop what you're doing before you leave the store and read that book because you cannot wait to see what happens? Of the titles I mentioned, Blackest Night and Final Crisis and Age of Apocalypse, Civil War, that was a comic where I remember people reading the issue and then asking me when the next issue was going to be there. Like, how long? Is it 30 days away, 45 days? Like, when is it coming? Secret Wars, the Hickman one, sort of got some of that vibe. That's probably the last one that really hit those notes. If you have any others, there have been others for sure. But to me, if you're talking about a healthy comic industry, if you're talking about something that is generating that's the kind of feeling and excitement you need to get in the shop. People cannot wait to read the next issue. And not just super fans. I love this comic, Ice Cream Man. If it's a fun comic, I can't wait. When I read the issue, I'm anxious to get to the next issue. Even though there's no cliffhangers or anything, but I'm anxious to see what's going to come next. But you would be crazy to say that Ice Cream Man has the same impact as Civil War. Of course it doesn't. The sales tell us that. So I'm talking about generates that kind of anxious reaction from lots of comic fans. Not one, not the super fans, but the majority of fans. That is true success. Anyway, hope you're doing well. Thanks for the question. Age of Apocalypse. It gets a lot of shit, but that comic deserves a lot of praise. Thanks for listening.